Hello everybody, this is Luis Ángel Carro Pérez from Apizaco, Tlaxcala, and you're watching Teacher Learning Cast with Piry Herrera and Benjamin Stewart. Yeah!
Hello everyone, and welcome to Teacher Learning Cast, episode number 15, this day, June 15th, 2018. My name is Benjamin Stewart, calling from beautiful Aguascalientes, Mexico.
Hello everybody, this is Piry Herrera, again joining you on a Friday, because we have a special day today, and also from Aguascalientes, Mexico, hoping you all are enjoying the weekend, the football matches, and everything that comes across you.
Absolutely. Things have been really crazy this week, trying to finish up with classes, but we've got some really special guests this week, and really happy to have them with us. Before we begin, though, I'd like to invite everyone, if you are listening and watching this recording or watching us live, give us some feedback. Let us know what your thoughts are about regarding any of the topics that we discuss. We're always looking for teachers, educators, administrators interested in education to share their experiences, to feel free to join us in these live broadcasts. We broadcast every week, and we're really happy this week to have some guests to talk about teacher development, specifically here in Aguascalientes. We have really a great opportunity to find out what it takes really to put on a successful teacher conference here locally. And the second segment, we're going to talk about some research being done regarding motivation, how to motivate students, and really look forward to talking with all of our guests today. But if you want to participate, feel free to contact us on Facebook, and if you search Teacher Learning Cast, you'll find our public page there where you can share information. You can also reach out to me directly in my website, benjaminlstewart.wordpress.com, or Piry's website at homers2000.wixsite.com/PDHA.
Yes, I'm really glad that we change once in a while from the routine of doing the transmission on Saturday, and it's very exciting to have guests here with us at the show. And this time, continuing with some of the ideas we have shared before, in which we always end up talking about the sharing, the having contact, making connection with the students, in this case, making connections with other teachers. And I think this is a good opportunity to reinforce that thought, sharing and connecting.
Absolutely. Sharing and connecting, I think, was kind of a tie that really links all of our past videos. We've talked in the past, I think last week, we focused on output-driven hypothesis, where we looked at different types of hypothesis of learning. We've talked about performance tasks. We've discussed pre-service English language teacher experiences as they get into their first semester of simulated classes, teacher aids. We have a lot of content available, so feel free to contact us and reach out and find those videos. And this video as well, it will be adding to our archive, and so that other people can benefit as well. So I'd like to go ahead and get started, and if we could, I would like if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself. Maybe we can start with Salvador, and maybe tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Okay, Benjamin, thank you for inviting us. Well, my name is Salvador Barrientos. I am the general coordinator here at Universidad Panamericana for the language department. What do I do? All kinds of things. Administrative, academic, events, whatever it comes to mind, we can do it. So basically, that's the idea. We do what it takes here in the language department.
Hi, my name is Carla Salazar. I am an English teacher here at Universidad Panamericana, and focusing mainly on advanced English and TOEFL preparation.
My name is Ruth Juarez. I'm a full-time teacher here, and I teach different levels. lately basic and intermediate levels.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mario, and I've been working for this university for about 10 years, or a little more than that. And I teach English as well as Spanish for foreigners. Nice meeting you all. Thanks for inviting us.
And my name is Peter Riley, and I also am a full-time teacher at a part-time teacher at the Universidad Panamericana, and it's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for those introductions. So let's get into the teacher conference. You know, I had the pleasure of attending this last conference back in May, the teacher conference at Universidad Panamericana. And, you know, I remember attending some years ago and was very happy to hear that you were offering it again. Can you talk a little bit about what the conference is about, maybe how it began, you know, so many years ago, and anything else you'd like to share about what the objectives of the teacher conference are?
Sure, Benjamin. Look, the conference dates back to 2003. Its name used to be Universidad Bonaterra Teachers Conference, because in those days we used to be Universidad Bonaterra. Then later, around 2009, we changed to Universidad Panamericana, and the name of the conference changed as well to UPTC. As UPTC, we had several events, like back in 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012. Then we jumped to 2014, and 2014 was the last event we had. Then we went all the back to 2018. The idea was that when we prepared the conference, the objective was to gather teachers for teacher development and for teacher sharing. So we found out that talks and conferences were important. However, we found that sharing, networking among teachers was just as important as the conference themselves. So we took the time between 2014 and 2018 to have the conference again, because we were having little response on the side of teachers. So we had conferences with only a few people coming. So we said we weren't sure if we were to continue having these conferences. However, it turned out that this year we had a turnout about 170 people. We could hardly fit in the conference room. That was fantastic, but it was a challenge to attending so many people. As another special issue on this conference was that for the first time we had students studying their bachelor's in language teaching. We had students from Universidad del Retoño. We had students from Normal Superior de Aguascalientes. And I think this was pretty enriching for teachers as well as for the students themselves, because they managed to talk with experienced teachers from different institutions in Aguascalientes.
Salvador, I guess you've been there since the very beginning of this event. And now that you're talking about the involvement of other universities and the background of it, was the thought in the first moment when you first planned the event for the first time, were you thinking about covering more people outside your own university?
Yes, since the event started back in 2003, the idea was, and we did in fact invite people from other universities, other high schools, and we have had people even from universities outside the state, from Monterrey, Mexico City, Guadalajara. So yes, but the idea was to open this, to give it an open figure all the way from the beginning.
So if I understand you right, it was different this last year, where you actually went out and found teachers, and I think you also had students, right? I think you had actually students that were preparing to be teachers. Is that right?
That is correct. We had around 80 students preparing to be teachers from Normal Superior and Universidad del Retoño.
Yeah, one thing that I really was surprised and glad to see is, I think in Peter's plenary, he started the event with a great talk, really energetic, and got everybody really going. But it was interesting to see from all the different schools that were being represented there. It was really, and not just in-service teachers, but pre-service teachers. And, you know, I thought, wow, that's something that you don't always see. You might see, you know, maybe one school or a few schools represented, but it was really good to see that, you know, that many schools represented. So that was by design, right? That was something that is that something that you're planning on doing in the future?
In fact, it is. I don't know if here Mario would like to interact a little bit on how we visited each school. We went personally to some schools and invited them, and the result was fantastic. We usually did this before, however, the result was different this time.
We gladly got results from these different coordinators. That was one of the good points we did, that we went to the places personally, talked to the coordinators, remind them how it was before, remind them, because some of them had been here in previous events of our conferences, and in this case we wanted to refresh and to reinforce what we had before, and we had a very good result and pretty good response from these coordinators. They decided to spread the voice, if I can say it that way, and to talk it over with the teachers. And we know that the universities, the administration of each one of the universities sponsor the teachers, which is a pretty good thing, that universities are thinking that this is a good conference. They knew somehow, they heard somehow about our conferences before. So we were pretty glad that we had this response, and even sponsor from administration from each one of the institutions.
Yes, I think the UPTC 2018 comes into a very important moment here in Aguascalientes. Lately, little by little, we've been looking at universities trying to do different kind of events. But lately, in the last year, let's say, it's when we've seen this sharing and this exchange, interinstitutional exchange, from students from one university going to another, some teachers also going from one university or one institution to another to share. And I think this UPTC 2008 came into a very, very special moment. And the comment is just to ask Peter, what is your perception? You were there as a plenarist, and you had the original view of the beginning of the event with all these people from different places, teachers and students this time. What is your perception of this kind of event now in Aguascalientes?
Piry, I think it's very exciting when people that have a lot of experience get together with the up-and-coming group. Several times during the conference, in different sessions, I asked the people sitting next to me how old they were and what were they planning to do and so on. And they were saying things like 19, 20, 21 years old. Some of them wanted to be English teachers, but at least a small group of them also, they were interested in becoming math teachers. And so there was something for everybody there. And I just think it's very exciting when young people can rub elbows with people with a lot of experience. And I think that's what happened at the UPTC.
Yeah, I know for me, it was great to see some students, now colleagues, seeing them again and having them share their experiences, and certainly get a lot of enjoyment out of seeing that. I'm curious, Salvador, if you could speak, because I know you had a lot of students there from the Universidad Panamericana that were actually part of the event, which I think is another level, another access, or another way of looking at how successful something like this can be when you can get your own students involved in the process of such an event. Can you speak a little bit about how you involved the students, what their reactions were, anything along those lines?
Sure. I mean, having an event this big requires a lot of work on the side of the organizing committee, but the day of the event itself requires far much more work. So we needed help from someone, right? So we invited students to participate as hostess, as hosts in this event. Usually they do it with pleasure. They tend to be very participative, and it's hard work. However, we had people from pedagogy that were listening to Peter, that were listening to other talks, and they were quite excited. They were really, really excited about how research is going on in their own university, which they really had no idea. So they were surprised of the talks. They were surprised of your talk, Benjamin. Some people went into your talk and they were really pleased with the information they received. They didn't expect this. They just came to the conference to help. And once they listened to the conference, they were pleased and they were like very excited to be in the conference. And they felt part of this team. When they saw that the UPTC was a very kind of well-known conference, they felt proud and were happy of participating.
If I could follow up, are the students all from the same major, or are they from different majors? Can you talk a little bit about the type of student or what majors they are from?
They were from different majors, but basically they were from advanced levels. Some of them were students from Carla, others were students from Peter, but they were different majors and different levels.
One of the most participative majors we have is pedagogy. The pedagogy students are always eager to participate. They're always eager to experience new ideas. And business school, basically, right? Mm-hmm. So we could say pedagogy and business school were the more participative students in the conference.
What I sense in here is that we have kind of different levels of bonding, because we started talking about different universities integrating to the event, but also now that you mentioned that students participating and being part of the event, how is that working in the bonding with your teachers in there?
I think it works pretty well because you develop more confidence with them, you know them better, and they feel part of the event. They feel that they are taking an important role during the event.
In one of the previous shows we had with Benjamin, we were talking about connecting with the students and the importance of having a way to establish a relationship to support all the academic objectives. And I don't know, maybe Carla also as a teacher from the university, can you tell us how can you measure or determine this connection with the students in pro of the academic objectives in the subjects they have?
Okay, thank you for the question, first of all. I believe that the connection with the student is actually the most important thing, because if there is no connection, and I think all teachers have experienced this, the students, especially university students, who are basically, they want to please, they want to get along with you, but they will put up a wall, and this wall will prevent basically any language acquisition from entering if there is no connection. So we need to find a way as teachers to basically get to all of our students, to try to connect with them. And there are so many personalities within one classroom, so it's actually one of the most difficult tasks that we can do as teachers. But it's something that I believe most of the teachers at this university, at the beginning of the semester, we focus 1 to 2 weeks in just getting to know our students so that we are able to establish that connection.
Have you detected after the event any other bonding and connection amongst students themselves after participating in the event?
Definitely. I think it's human nature to help and to feel as though they were part of something big, and they saw the amount of people that were walking around, that attended the plenary, that went to the conferences, and they were guiding them. So I think they felt more comfortable with us. Definitely.
Yeah, Peter, did you see, how do you agree with that? What's been your experience with your students, especially those who leading up to this event, they participate? How does it work after the event, and what kind of feedback do you get from your students from this experience?
Well, as I was just listening to the comments by Ruth and Carla, Benjamin, I had a flashback, and I'm going back to about 1985, before some of the people at the table and the other screen were born. And my flashback was that from New York University, where I did my undergraduate work, we went to Cornell for a 4-day conference. It was on cognitive psychology. And I can tell you that one of the primary memories, the principal memories that I have of my undergraduate work was going there with a few other psychology students that were in the department. And I really hope when these kids are, these 19, 20, 20-year-olds, the students, there were about 80 students amongst the group, you know. I hope that they can look back 5, 10, 15 years ago when they are teachers and say, one of the things that I really took away from that semester was going to the Universidad Panamericana for that UPTC. I really hope that would happen, yeah. And there's no doubt, I think when there's a not only between the teachers, between the staff, but also from the staff to, there must have been, Ruth would tell us the exact number, but there were 14, 15, 16 students helping out, organizing everything. I mean, putting together the packets and putting together the bags with all the information, so on. When there's a common goal, it binds people together, you know, and that's what we had. We wanted to give a really good conference and show the best that we can offer through the language department. And that's what we did, teachers and students alike. So I guess that those are the things that come to my mind right now.
That's great. We've talked a lot in the past about performance tasks and really trying to find those activities, those tests that really motivate and drive students to participate. And I think this is a really great example of that, where you can bring everybody together for one total performance that really draws and brings everyone together. I'm curious, Salvador, about now looking back after this year's event, how you evaluated. I know that you had some surveys that you asked all of the attendees to fill out after each of the talks, and I'm curious if that was helpful, without getting into the specifics of those responses. But do you feel that was enough information? How do you evaluate the event afterwards? And is it just based on those responses? If you could speak a little bit to that.
Yes, as you mentioned, we had evaluations after the plenary speakers. We had evaluations after the talks. And I'm glad to say, not because it's a live show, but we had pretty good responses. In general, we had pretty good responses. Peter was one of the champions in our grades. He had a very high grade. I won't say the number, so he doesn't feel like too happy, like showing off. But yeah, he was one of our champs. In general, yes. I mean, we have to start like from very analytical numbers. So we consider the evaluations themselves as a number, as a grade. However, we had the chance to talk to teachers we know very well, and they are not afraid to say what they really think. And we had pretty good feedback as well. They were very, very pleased with the conference, with the topics, with the logistics of the event, with the staff that helped, with the students that were helping. They said they were friendly. So we consider both very numerical information, and we also had a few interviews with teachers that attended the conference and gave us their point of view. And then we gathered as a committee, and we gave our point of view, again, our evaluation, the way we saw the event. And it turns out that, like they said, every head is a different world, and we each had a different point of the event, but we found it came out as we planned it, let's say.
From that evaluation, Salvador, what do you think would be the main advice, or some of the main advices you could give us in case we just it just occurred to me that tomorrow I'm going to hold a congress here at my house. So from that evaluation, what would you think would be a good advice for me to take?
You know what? Peter mentioned bonding on the side of the students with teachers, and we found that this event created a bond among the staff, among the organizing committee, because you mentioned, what advice would you give me? First, a lot of planning, a lot of communication. We gather, we share ideas, and nobody had the last word. It was a matter of having the best idea for the event. So we took our time to get organized. Each one of us had a responsibility, and each one of us covered that responsibility. So it made the group stronger. So I would say preparation and communication.
And I know for sure, Ben, you got something to say about this planning and communications, in the sense that we are getting into productive outcomes that we can actually feel from the task itself. Isn't this what we want from our students, our teachers, information, and actually our teachers in service, planning and communication?
Yeah, I think one of the things I appreciate most really about your good advice, Salvador, is the way teachers and students work together, and not just the implementation, but the planning and the review at the end. So they're really involved from the beginning to the very end. It's not just, one or two people doing the whole event. It's really bringing everyone together. And I think for me, that's the big takeaway. And one thing that I really congratulate you and your whole team and all of the students that participated in bringing that together, because, for having such an event here locally in Aguascalientes, it's not that common, right? I mean, we have a lot of good conferences here throughout Mexico, throughout the country, but it's really nice to have such a good conference here locally that English teachers, which there are many here locally, have an option to further or continue their professional development and to connect and to network and to make those relationships. Even though we have technology where some may argue, was why do we even need to go to a face-to-face conference? We can just go online, right? But I think most of us here would agree that it's not the same as going face-to-face, having that relationship, meeting that person, and learning from each other, from the entire process. So again, I want to thank you very much for all of you for sharing your insights, really, and what it takes to bring and put together such an event. And I hope that it's something that you continue in the future.
I like to say, if I may, one thing that I learned from this last conference or our UPTC was, and it was very nice to know and to learn about, was the sharing experiences with teachers. Teachers came not only for a conference but also to share ideas, to share experiences with their partners. And I was really happy to see that even very experienced teachers were kind of interacting with the students. In this case, that we had students as well as teachers. We had a balanced number of each side. And I was really happy to see teachers talking to students and vice versa. And it was one of the things we learned from this conference, that we never stop learning. And it's very important, it's very interesting to share ideas, experiences with students, those of us who have more than 10, 15, 20 years of experience. And we never stop learning. I talked to a couple of students, and I always learn something from these 20-year-old kids. I say kids. That was it. Thank you very much.
Yes, I totally agree with you in that sense, Mario, because we always and I think that's a generational thing. We always have something to learn from each other, and we always have something from each generation to adopt and acquire. And I think you had a nice space. Unfortunately, when I wanted to sign up for the event, there was no space, and it was early. It was early in the submission, and there was no space. I was really glad to hear that, but I think you had a nice forum to have students and teachers share their feeling and expose this need of being heard, which at the same time it's a need to have a feedback of what I have to say, and also to listen to you and give you my feedback about what you have to say. So I'm really glad we can have this kind of events. I thank you a lot for joining us today and sharing this experience beyond the event.
And if anyone wants to, go
Yeah,
ahead.
could I chip in, Benjamin, that in the program, on the cover of the program, we had a quote from Socrates that the unreflected life is not worth living. And we thought that it would be good to include that, because at the end of the school year, sometimes it's a good time to pull together idiosyncratic events that happen between students, and maybe meeting with parents and preparing exams and lesson plans. And it's a good time to reflect on what went well and how I could become a better teacher for the upcoming year. And so I think it's an important role of the UPTC to push the pause button when we're always working, we're always teaching. Many teachers have multiple positions and so on, to say, hey, let's get together for an afternoon and pause and think and share. The other thing that comes to mind as I was listening to what Mario said, and also Carl, about making connections, is that, right now it seems that research suggests that about half the teachers in the world are reporting some level of burnout, that having 2 or 3 jobs and nowhere is teaching really well paid anywhere in the world, right? That supposedly the research suggests when teachers get together with other teachers, it allows them to decrease the burnout a little bit. It allows them to let off a little bit of steam and say, hey, I too sometimes have difficult days, difficult students, difficult stretches. So when we reach out and make connections, either between our staff, our language department, and within universities, within departments from different universities, it might lessen a little bit the burnout that we could be subject to. So I thought it was, it's another plus of having a conference like the UPTC.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the issue of burnout is real. We just had a semester student do a research on burnout, and it's it is an issue. And I know, for one, having attend an event like this does really recharge the batteries. Really kind of gets you back into a field that is enjoyable and worthwhile. All right. Well, thank you. I think if anyone is listening and wants to post a question to Salvador, Mario, Ruth, Carla, or Peter, feel free to leave a comment in the Facebook page and leave us feedback. If you want to leave comments about any other events that are coming up, if you want to share any types of events similar to these that are coming up here locally in Aguascalientes or abroad, feel free to share those as well. Okay, I think we'll move on now to our second segment. And Peter was nice enough to share in his plenary at the UPTC 2018 his research on the music model. And I think, Peter, could you kind of give us kind of a backdrop into maybe how the research emerged, the purpose of the research, and what kind of problem that you were addressing by doing such research?
Sure, of course I would. This came up about a year ago. I was searching the internet on wondering how we could motivate Generation Z. And those of us that have read something about Generation Y and Z, we find that there are certain characteristics that make them a real challenge to teach. For example, the number one thing, and in the plenary, I asked people to work with the person next to them and to talk about 2 or 3 adjectives or words or phrases that they would use to describe Generation Z. and they came up with things like they're so immersed in technology and they oftentimes seem more motivated by what their friends say rather than the authority figure, for example, in this case, the teacher. And also, sometimes the attention span is more limited today, considering, for example, Google has analyzed that the average time that somebody who's 15 to 20 years old spends on a website is about 8 seconds before they switch to another page. And some teachers commented, they were commenting in pairs during the plenary, that this makes it a challenge because, for example, if we prepare a 10-minute activity for students to do in our 50-minute class or 60-minute class, then imagine if they're accustomed to 8-second stimulation from one web page, and we ask them to do one activity for 10 minutes. So 8 goes into 10 minutes about 60 times. So that would put students to feel in a position of, wow, this is really drawn out, this activity. And they, they're accustomed to moving on to the next thing right away, not going. This makes it very challenging to work with Generation Z because it almost seems like whatever we do, it's not enough for them. They want to move on to the next thing, or they just want to finish and they want to get back into their own self-indulgent behavior. So about a year ago, thinking about the challenge of working with Gen Z, I went online and I came across a professor whose name is Dr. Brett Jones, and he is at the University of Virginia. And he has been, for the last 9 years, promoting something called the music model. So our department's response over the spring semester was to take some of his ideas from the music model and incorporate them into our department. And this worked its way into a research study where we had 268 students participate, half of whom received approximately 5 strategies, teacher strategies, and half participated in a control group. And I just want to go over here and throw up one screen if I can. I'm going to share it with you. Here I'm going to go. I hope you can see that screen. I think I'm doing what I'm supposed to do to share that screen. This is over here. This is Dr. Brett Jones, and he works at the University of Virginia. This is the state of Virginia on the east coast of the United States. And the music model involves 5 key principles that form the acronym MUSIC, M-U-S-I-C. And his point is he's pulled together research from Motivation to Learn from different researchers. And his first point is that if a student feels that they have some autonomy, that they have some control over the materials and how activities are carried out, they would report that they're empowered. If they believe that English is useful, that contributes to motivation. If they believe they can be successful, also it increases student motivation. And if they find activities interesting, and very importantly, as Carla referred to, is people need to feel that those people around them, both their peers and their teachers, care about them. These all work together to increase student motivation to learn. And his point is that when motivation increases, there some important things come into play that are going to raise student learning and therefore performance. For example, if these 5 things are in play in the classroom, then a student reports they're motivated, and therefore they are more likely to use higher level learning strategies. So some of us who have gray hair and who are bald, like myself, we remember somebody named Rebecca Oxford who wrote language learning strategies way back in 1990. And she said that there are some very basic learning strategies such as memorization, rote learning, and there are very advanced learning strategies that are, for example, being creative, developing a rubric on whether what I create in class is effective or not, and then actually evaluating what I've done. And this is called self-regulated learning. So it's very clear in the research now, if a student is motivated, Self-regulation, in other words, students taking responsibility for their own learning, increases. And it's also very clear in the literature that as self-responsibility, I am responsible for my English language proficiency as much as or more important than the teacher, then learning increases. And as learning increases, performance increases. So I just said a mouthful. I'm going to put this pause. I'm going to turn off my microphone. And before I talk about some of the results that we found out, I would just like anybody in the department to contribute on anything that I just said.
Okay, I noticed in my groups, every time that we gave them the opportunity to prepare, to participate, they were very excited because they prepared their presentation carefully, and their peers, their classmates were very interested listening at them, and they were like explaining and sharing. In the other side, also when we were playing the music that they were required at the beginning of the semester, also they were fascinated, enjoying, this is my song, I wrote it, and I suggested that one. So I think it was really, really good for the students to participate.
Yes, Peter, I'm kind of sensing from what you said about the 5 different elements, empowerment, the content to be useful, if students can be successful in it, if they're interested, and if they feel care. I pretty much think it totally matches what you mentioned about the attention span and these kind of characteristics of new generation. Like, for example, now that we have these extended teenage years, which bring a lot of different situations into the classroom, which have to be dealt from a point of view of the individual, as these 5 aspects mentioned them. There need to be care. There need to be considered part of a society, of a community. There need to be successful. There need to actually be able to. I mean, all of these 5 aspects match in there. At some point, we were discussing in one of the programs about the audience caring about 3 main aspects. 3 main aspects in a class. What is it? Why do I need to know that? And how do I do it? Which pretty much goes towards this. I would add to those 3 questions also, and taking into consideration the music model, the commitment that is increased by the feeling of which would be number 5. They feel cared by others in the learning environment, so motivation raises. I think it's a pretty clear picture in brief of the elements. And I would like to listen to some practicalities of what's been going on in your classes.
Yes, well, if you'll permit me, I don't mean to dominate the conversation, but I would like to give you, PD, and the rest, 5 strategies that, very importantly, it was, I believe, on January 4th, we had our first teacher meeting, and there were 15 possible strategies that we could through which we were going to convert the 5 principles of Dr. Jones into in-class observable practices. And what we did was we had the teachers work in pairs or trio that day, and each trio took one of the 5 principles, and they decided how we were going to turn that into an observable teacher strategy in the classroom. So what I'm going to do is go back over here, if you permit me, to this, and I'm going to throw up the next slide here. And PD, I'm going to try to answer that comment here by putting on compartir, right? And I hope you can see that. And what this says is, these were the 5 strategies that came out of Dr. Jones here. The first one was empowerment, and we asked students to teach grammar points to their peers instead of the teacher teaching the grammar points. For usefulness, we showed some videos of people from very large, important companies in Aguascalientes. This time it was from Flextronics, which is an almost entirely English-speaking transnational company, even though it's located here in northern Aguascalientes. And this lady, Mabel, for example, said that if somebody speaks, if somebody is a bilingual and they have a bachelor's degree, let's say in engineering, they would earn 3 times what a monolingual Spanish speaker would earn. So by usefulness, we wanted to convince students that English is directly related to a higher position in a company and also a higher salary. Regarding success, our practical strategy was to identify 2 or 3 struggling students in each one of our classes that participated in the experimental group and talk to them one-on-one and try to encourage them to continue working, to be persistent, and to continue practicing. Because really there's only one obstacle between not being able to speak English and being able to speak English well, and that is the decision to keep practicing. Okay, so Krashen said, just as we all know how to breathe, we all know how to walk, we all know how to eat, we can all learn second language. The language acquisition device never turns off. So our role in this one was that we would encourage them to continue practicing, not to desert. The 4th strategy had to do with interest. As Ruth just mentioned, we asked students to send us the lyrics of their favorite song, and at the beginning of each class, or maybe 3 or 4 times a week, we would ask the students to, we would ask them, they would direct their attention to the screen, and we would project the lyrics of one of the students' songs, and of course play it, and then they would jot down in their notebook these missing words. That's how we try to raise the interest, because the songs played were generated by the students, not by the teacher. And finally, to show that we were caring, in that meeting on January 4th, the teachers proposed that we create a feedback form on which the students could write, and you can see down here what they liked and what they don't like about the course. And also at the bottom, there was an open-ended space for any comment that they wanted to make. So this is how we receive feedback, and then we would get back to students on how we would try our best. Of course, the course is defined by materials and objectives, etc. It's not just totally up to the students, but we would try to include student comments to give some backwash on how our courses are going. So with that, again, I'm going to turn off my screen and go back, and perhaps some of the teachers that tried some of these strategies could offer some personal anecdotes.
Okay, after trying these strategies, it was, I specifically liked the one about caring, about motivating them, because when students feel that their teacher is in fact motivating, that the teacher cares for them and wants them to prosper, they, for that same reason, are motivated to go to class. As we know, in a university, it is difficult for them to actually even attend class. So they're not only motivated to attend class, but they actually do the work because they want to please us, because they know that we care for them and that we're there for them. So I think this is something that, this was a point that actually prospered in my specific classes, especially with my personality.
I'm curious regarding the feedback form, how often you applied it, and what was surprising about that you didn't anticipate, and how did you take that feedback? If you could talk a little bit about Carla and anyone else who wants to add, but I'm really curious about how that feedback form was applied and your reaction or opinion.
Okay, this feedback was given to the students every 2 weeks during the semester. Every 2 weeks, we were coming up with these formats, and in an anonymous way, they write down what they thought about the class.
And were there moments when you received feedback that you changed or adapted your teaching, or was everything just confirming what you had been planning and implementing?
Okay, we had two groups, one experimental group and other group in which we were not giving these formats. So everything we were giving it into Peter. We were handing into Peter without making changes yet.
Well, actually, I can say that from my feedback, some of my feedback was homework. They weren't too fond of the homework, so I thought, okay, let's bring the homework into the classroom and see if I have the same results as I did when it was actually done in the home. So I actually did change a couple of things because of the feedback that I received.
Yeah, I can see in here from the examples you are mentioning that we go back to Salvador's idea of planning and communication. What about the logistics for all of this?
Well, once again, we usually have a meeting at the beginning of the semester where we set out our objectives. So in this first meeting, we talked to the teachers, to the whole staff, talking about this new project Peter had proposed. And in that same meeting, we had Peter was very specific with dates, with specific tasks we had to do. So we shared the information again. We shared the plan. Peter communicated the way it had to be implemented, and then Peter was the one in charge of giving this follow-up on the evaluation formats, on the tasks that had to be done. So, and well, we have a very tiny teacher's room, and Peter managed to get everything in there and make teachers work perfectly. And you know what? The good advantage we have is that our teachers are very eager to participate. They are very hardworking, and I think Peter never got a "I forgot" or "Oh, sorry, I don't want to do it." We usually work in a smooth way, but based again on planning and communicating, I think.
Hey, I want you to know that in past events, I learned something from one of my colleagues, Mario. He's sitting there to the left of that table. And when he had to organize different events, for example, one was like a cultural communications fair where each group represents a country. What Mario would do is he would plaster the teacher's room that looked like Christmas. Everywhere you turned, you would see another notice reminding us teachers what we had to do. So Benjamin, and Piry, I went into this knowing that every week I needed and actually taped to the center of the table. We have an oval table there in the center of the teacher's room where they all gather around between their classes and they sit, and that's where we celebrate birthdays and we get together and we have a cup of coffee between classes. And right in the middle of that, I would tape what teachers were responsible for that week. And I have to say, Benjamin, it was really amazing how teachers followed through on what we said at the beginning of the semester. It was really nice. So I think what I learned from Mario is with a little reminder, everybody, if the staff is professional, as it is at the UP in our language department, they are willing to do it. But if without that little reminder every week, it could be that we get overwhelmed with all sorts of details and we might forget, but that didn't happen during this course. So for the first 8 weeks of the semester, we carried out things very, very smoothly.
Yeah, well, definitely it sounds like it's a commitment on everyone's part and takes everyone to contribute. I'm curious now looking back at this experience, and this is for you, Peter, and everyone else who was part of the study, that if you take each of those 5 elements, is there one more than any other that either was more challenging or just the results were more surprising? I'm looking at this article from Jones where he wrote, I think this was back in 2009, it's called Motivating Students to Engage in Learning. So this was the article that he published, I believe, that bringing forth this idea of the model, the music model. But he says here that talking about implementing, he talks about 5 different components of what to consider when implementing this model. And one of the points that he makes is that he says the first time a course is taught, instructors should consider the 5 components in the design, but only focus on a few components that they believe are most critical. So in your experience, was there one of these elements that stood out, most challenging, most surprising, that for you as an institution thought, well, maybe we need to focus more on this first if you're looking at it from a teacher that's just beginning to become aware of this model?
So Benjamin and Piry and everyone, I'd like to again to answer that question about which strategy might be more challenging and might be for young teachers to keep in mind. I'm going to share this screen here that comes up. If you look here, this is these red numbers here, Benjamin, in answer to your question, this 4.7 right here and 4.6, these are the areas that were more challenging for the teachers in our department. What happened was there was a pre-test, an online questionnaire called the Music Model Inventory, which measures student perception of these 5 in the classroom. And then 7.5 weeks later, we went ahead and measured if there was any difference before and after. And just looking at this column before, students that have been with us because this is the spring semester, they had already been with us at least 1 semester, and it could have been 2, 3, or 4. This was their 4th semester with us. You can see that a challenge for our department, by the way, these numbers are on a Likert scale from 1 to 6. So the fact that our caring was 5.5, I think this was a very high number, and it shows that the students believe that the teachers in our department are very caring and they're very interested in helping students maximize their learning. They also believe from the very beginning that English is useful. So a 5.2 out of 6, again, it's like hitting a home run, and students also believe they could be successful. Now, these 2 red numbers over here are going to answer the question that they seem to be a bigger challenge. So let me say a little bit about this one over here called empower. Empower means that a student believes they have some control over course activities, course materials, and even evaluation, grouping, and how the class operates. So the students reported significantly less. For example, this 4.7 is significantly less on a student t-test at 0.05 level. And also this 4.6 is significantly less. So while we're hitting a home run on caring, students believe that they do not have the same level of control that they would like to have in the classroom. Down here, interest means that they find the activities interesting. So this is our Achilles heel in our department. And in answer to the question, this is what we found. Curiously, looking at studies by Jones, Jones found that also empowerment was a low point for students in other courses, in courses from Iceland to China to the Middle East to the United States. Students do not feel they are empowered in different classes. Now, Jones, this is the first year that Jones is actually going to carry out a study including English as a foreign language student, foreign language learners. There has been no study during the first 9 years of the music model that looked into English as a foreign language. So this study actually was the first one. And I mentioned that because this point of interest is an Achilles heel, I think, for a language department, because at the Universidad Panamericana, nobody comes to the UP to become an English teacher. We do have a pedagogy department, It is not the largest department. We have many more business students and engineering students. In fact, probably the UP is known for its engineering program. So when you talk about interest in an English class that is for some secondary compared to their engineering courses, to their gastronomy courses, to their pedagogy courses, and business courses, this becomes a real challenge. How do we stimulate interest in the language course? So where we're going with this is for the upcoming fall semester, when the teachers meet in late July, early August, we will again hand out a number of possible strategies, maybe 4 or 5 to stimulate empowerment and 4 or 5 to stimulate interest. And then teachers will work in groups of 2 or 3 and say, okay, to increase empowerment, to increase learner autonomy, they will do strategy A and C. And to increase interest, they'll do strategy D and G. And then we will also do a before and after, and we'll see if we can raise these numbers, let's say, to over 5. I don't know if I'm being clear in this presentation, so I'm going to turn off this screen and kick the ball back to you guys for ideas and or questions.
Yeah, I'm curious if any of your teachers have anything else to add related to this, the interest and empowerment elements of the music model based on the study.
Yes, thank you. We recently went to a conference. It was a conference for all the teachers here, not just English teachers, but all the university teachers. And the theme of this conference was teaching in the future. And they just explained how we need to change our teaching, how we need to change, because times are going to be changing. I think that's part of empowerment. In the past, it was basically the teacher is sitting in front of the students. The teacher is the center of attention, and that's something that we need to change. Our students need to be the center of attention, and as English teachers, they have taught us this, they have been teaching us this for a long time, but it's also about empowering the students that they are contributing to their learning. And that's something that I think not just English teachers, but all teachers need to do.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Carla. Yeah, and just thinking out loud, I'm curious if things like differentiated instruction from Wiggins and McTighe's has anything to do or might have something to do with maybe providing more agency to the students where they take more of an active role in deciding on the content, the process, different products, even the learning environment, making decisions about how they can interact, if that might contribute to both these two elements of interest and empowerment, because I see those two very closely related. But yeah, I'm curious to learn what you guys do in the future as far as addressing these two, and yeah, thanks again for sharing.
I understand you have already some evidence of immediate results, as Carla mentioned about the motivation to attend class. I see a lot of organization in this kind of work, and the question goes to the idea of the parallel advantages of working like that. Have you seen any advantage in teachers' community besides the project itself by working in this way?
At the end of the semester, we got together and we had a barbecue. And there, it was like a celebration that we had accomplished something important that was beyond what's in our contract, just to teach English, that we had worked together and done something important. I want you to know that 2 articles are being written. One of them is already done, and we will try to publish that. And in that article, although it won't have all the teachers' names, there would be an acknowledgement that we have contributed to the knowledge base related to the music model, specifically in the area of working with English as a foreign language learners.
Really interesting to see this this kind of work, and for sure you will have more results and more things to go through in this moment. I'm really glad to know there's this kind of teams working around in town.
Yeah, I guess, and certainly look forward to reading that article and future articles. Again, I want to congratulate everyone and thank everyone for participating and sharing your thoughts and experiences and your research and your teacher conference. You guys are really doing some wonderful things there at the university. And so hats off to everyone there for doing that and sharing.
I would like to thank you for inviting us. I would like to thank you for letting us share this information. And Piry, I promise you will be the first one registered for the UPTC 2019. I'm terribly sorry, but you're the first one registered. You have your registration purposes now.
I'd just like to say, if I may, I think at the end, motivation is what the most important thing. If you're motivated, if our students are motivated, they learn. If they are not motivated, they just go to classes, right? I just finished my master's a few years ago, and believe me, in a few classes I was not motivated, and I totally forgot what they were talking about with teachers. But then I went to many other classes, and I was very motivated going, and I really learned. So motivation, and if we do not try to motivate or generate motivation in our students, who else will do? So our classroom is a motivation generator. It should be a motivation generator, and that's what counts. I thank you also for inviting us to this interview, this conference, and it's really nice meeting you or seeing you guys again, Peter, Piry, Benjamin, and as well as my partners. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yes, I also want to thank everybody, Mario, Salvador, Ruth, Carla, Peter, Benjamin. It's always a pleasure to have this kind of talks. I want to thank also my kid that allowed me to be in his room. I'm in a gamer's cave if you want to take a look. So, thank you, everybody. It's a nice experience sharing with you. Feel free to join to Teacher Learning Cast, to be with us individually or as a group again anytime you want.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.